Now quite often you have to explain the shapes, and this really comes down to making sure you hit some key points. One, you should consider the regions of electron density. Now that you could use the terminology electron pairs, although if it's a double bond obviously it's not a pair. But yeah, you need to consider the regions of electron density that are around that central atom. Now the second point is very important. This is a valency shell electron pair repulsion theory. So stating that electrons repel each other, I mean they're negative, they're the same charge, they repel. And they repel to be as far away as possible. So that's what the second point is about. Third is what I would put in there. It's not always required in NCA, in fact it often isn't. But the shape is based on that electron repulsion. So if there are 4 regions, it would be based on a tetrahedral shape. If there are 3 regions, it would be based on the trigonal planar shape. So it's a fairly simple thing to remember anyway. And then finally, the number of bonding and non-bonding pairs. So you just state how many bonding pairs there are, how many non-bonding pairs there are, and therefore the shape is whatever it's going to be. Now this last point down the bottom here is really just something that you may want to help clarify this, that the non-bonding pair of electrons, assuming there is one in the case you're writing about, it helps determine the shape, but it's not really considered when naming it. Okay, so the repulsion of the electrons helps determine the shape, but because we can't see the non-bonding pair, we don't actually consider them in the naming. It's only the actual atoms we're interested in. So clarifying that point may be an important one depending on the question. Let's have a look at some examples. Now, this is NH3, a common example that's appeared in a number of exams. Now for a start, you should be able to name the shape, which of course is trigonal pyramid. So this has got 4 regions of electron density around it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's got 4 regions. And 3 are bonding. And 1 is a non-bonding pair. So if you know that information, then you should be able to write about this. Okay, now here's an explanation written out. Now you'll see in some NCA questions it's much simpler than this, because there are some key points, but I've done a slightly extended answer here. And again, we're looking at the things you should do. There are 4 regions of electron density about the central atom. That's very important. You need to state these regions are negatively charged and repel each other to be as far apart as possible. The shape is based on a tetrahedral shape. However, as only 3 electron pairs are bonding and 1 is non-bonding, the shape is trigonal pyramid. The non-bonding pair contributes to the shape but is not considered when naming. Perhaps the pivotal pieces of information you must include would be the ones that I'm going to highlight. Okay, so the other bits I've added in, which I haven't highlighted, I think help clarify it, and I would write, but the ones highlighted are the absolute ones that you must put in. Okay, so that's an explanation about shape. Let's try one more. Well, when we look at this molecule, we've got 1, 2, 3 regions. So the shape for this is trigonal planar, and it's got 3 regions, and there are no non-bonding pairs. So let's look at a written explanation for this one. Okay, now in this one I've modified this. There are 3 regions of electron density about the central atom. You must talk about that. Now I've just put this in there just in case. It's not something that's necessarily required, but it's a point that I would make. The double bond only counts as 1 region. They repel each other to be as far apart as possible. Now, I should have probably said the electron regions. So okay, I've just changed it a little bit for clarity. The electron sets repel each other to be as far apart as possible. There are no non-bonding pairs as all 3 regions of electrons are bonding. The shape is therefore trigonal planar. So I haven't stated what the shape is based on because there's no non-bonding pairs. the shape will be the shape, which of course is trigonal planar. So that's, in some respects, a simpler explanation. Now if you follow that simple format of talking about the regions of electron density, how electrons repel each other to be as far apart as possible to maximum distance, what the shape is based on if it's relevant, and I'd say that if there was a non-bonding pair there, how many bonding and non-bonding pairs or regions there are, and what therefore the shape is, whatever the shape will be in that example. And I probably would also try and make a point that the non-bonding pair helps determine the shape, but isn't considered when naming it. So, and obviously that would just depend on the example being asked. Anyway, that's how you explain shapes in paragraphs.